welcome everybody. We're here. Luke.
Hello.
Today we're going to taste Prosecco. We're going to taste these three guys. Two from Italy and one from Australia, being Brown Brothers. Yeah, well, Prosecco. What do you think, Luke?
I'm excited. I think it's the perfect time for Prosecco, being Easter. Has anyone entered the live stream yet?
Yes, we have Christine. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Christine. Thank you for joining us. It's always good to see our loyal and faithful customers coming back
Christine.
time and time again, even in these difficult times. But, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Prosecco. If you haven't got any of the ones we're talking about, I know Christine does have, but if you haven't, just any bottle of Prosecco will do, but we'll talk our way through it anyway. There's a whole lot of good things to know about Prosecco, but let's start by opening one. Oh, Luke's going to open that.
I'll open this.
Cool. Well, Prosecco, as we know it, originates from the northern part of Italy, sort of around Verona. There's sort of two sub-regions there, but they're hard to pronounce. We just might say it's up that, the sort of epicenter of Prosecco in Italy is Verona, and I suppose the similar sort of situation happens in Victoria. Here we have where King Valley is probably the epicenter of Prosecco in Australia. So we'll look at the styles and look at how it all works. But Luke's going to pop this one in a minute. There we go.
Now, the trick with opening a bottle of sparkling on camera while someone's talking is that's when you find out how quietly you can do it.
So what is Prosecco usually made out of? I do not know anything about Prosecco.
Well, have some of that. Prosecco is made from the grape variety called Glera, which is indigenous to that part of Italy around Verona. The history of Prosecco goes back way before Champagne and lots of other sparkling wine. Originally it was just a fizzy wine as opposed to a bubbly wine, so it was more frizzante. So it's something that had been made and bottled early and still had some secondary ferment, well, not even secondary, primary ferment to go in the bottle. And you still see them make this style of wine now. It's nowhere near as it's not as fizzy as these lots are. These are a lot fizzier. And you'd see them, the old-fashioned ones tend to have, you find the cork is a normal wine sort of bottle cork, and it'll be sort of tied down with string. So they don't have to have the bottle pressure of these guys.
It's a very different beast, I believe, in terms of textural element.
Yeah, now in terms of it, you know, the Italian styles are very much about aperitivo, so that 4:30 in the afternoon when you had one of those days at work, you go and have one or two of these before you go out to dinner. So the way it's consumed and the way it's made is nowhere near comparable to Champagne. It's not meant to be compared to Champagne. I think if you compare it to Champagne, you're likely to confuse your palate and confuse what it's meant to be. It's meant to be sort of light, frivolous, easy, nothing overly complicated.
So just to let everyone know, we're starting today with the Frassinelli Extra Dry. It's probably quite hard to see these labels, unfortunately. This is obviously an Italian, Verona-based, lovely Prosecco.
Now, when we come to Prosecco, there's all sorts of different names and things you need to know, which we don't get confused by with the Australian ones. In the Australian ones, we just call it Prosecco, and then off we go. But they have rules and different things to go by with the Italian ones. The first thing with all Italian wines, I'll have these kinds of things. It's all about the appellation. This is a DOC, which means comes from the region. It's probably 85% of grape from the region. It says it's on the bottle here, but it can be stuff from outside of that, but there probably isn't. The next, so in those sorts of wines, you have IGT, which is the lowest level, which means it's Italian, but it could come from anywhere. DOC means it's typical of the region, and DOCG means it all comes from where it says it comes from.
So DOC implies that 85% of the product in the bottle has to be from that controlled region.
Yes.
DOCG is 100%.
Yes.
So if you see people speaking about DOC versus DOCG, that's just what it means.
IGT means it comes from anywhere in Italy. We don't have that restrictions in Australia for whatever reason, which means if it says Prosecco and King Valley, well, it probably comes from there, but 85% it has to. But outside of that, who knows? Now, the next thing is other things you see on an Italian Prosecco label. The two obvious things you see, this one's extra dry. Sometimes you see brut. Now, brut is the driest of it, which means it has to have less than 12 grams of sugar per litre. Typically, Prosecco's label brut will be sort of 8 to 10 grams, which is exactly the same as brut champagne, in fact. And although it says it's brut, which means it's drier than extra dry, it can be mistakenly seem quite sweet because of the floral notes of the Glera grape. It's sort of it's more the flavours as opposed to the actual sugars. The next layer up is extra dry, which is this one's label, which is generally somewhere over 12 grams of sugar per litre. In terms of the rules, it has to be anywhere between 12 and 17. They're generally sort of around the 12 to 14. I'm not 100% sure exactly how much this is, but it doesn't taste like it's got more than 14. It's fairly light. So it's the next layer up from brut, the extra dry. Again, there's not a lot of sugar in that. Not very. It tastes quite fruity and sweet, but it isn't. A lot of sugar in it.
What I will say is that I find it quite difficult to, particularly with sparkling wines, to get a good nose on them. It can be quite difficult to smell the wine in comparison to something like a red or a white.
I suspect with Prosecco, it's all about, you've knocked off the other day, go and have a glass of Prosecco, have a laugh with your mates, whatever. It's not actually meant to be nosed overly much.
That's true.
Nosed.
No, smell, sniff that.
Nose.
Stick your nose in it. I've got a nose to stick in it. That's good.
I use the term to nose the wine, particularly because there's a difference between when you're drinking it and you're just actually going to naturally smell it anyway, and actually going out of your way to, stick your nose in the glass and, whether or not you swirl or do any of that. I'm going to smell the wine when I'm drinking it, but there's a different level of attention involved in maybe being a bit more.
I think this one has quite a good nose, actually. I think it's got quite a distinctive.
That's Vivian off screen.
The voice from the producer's box.
And Christine says, "Oh, good. I thought it was just me."
Christine off screen. There you go. Well, I like that, and that's one of my favourites. That's why that came out of the box.
I've never done a sparkling tasting. Do you talk about, I guess, flavours in it, or what sort of?
You can, and we should, etc., etc.
I think straight off the bat, in terms of the smell of the wine, I'm getting a lot of sort of like pink rose petal.
Not really.
Like it's not a sweet rose petal. It's just that like fresh, floral, nice, almost perfume-like smell to it.
I get a more meringue kind of.
Meringue, yeah. Interesting note.
And a bit lemony on the palate.
There's definitely a bit of citrus flavour to it, which is quite prevalent for Prosecco. I'm also getting.
Yeah, I get a lot of lemon. Interesting.
lemon note.
I would particularly say a my lemon as well, but maybe that's just me.
No, do you think? I think it's a bit more acidic than that. I think my lemon's got that really lemonade flavour. I think this is just lemon.
Just regular lemons, not my lemons.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyone else getting any other flavour profile from in terms of floral or fruits?
And what would you, I guess, eat? Would you eat with it? Not eat this, but what would you eat with it? Or what could you pair with it?
Cicchetti.
Yeah,
Cicchetti.
cicchetti, which is
Cicchetti, yeah. Cicchetti.
Little tapasy bits.
a traditional Italian
Venetian, in fact.
Venetian, so very similar region. Traditional sort of antipasto before dinner.
You go into these bars and they just have like these big counters and little tiny things on toast and stuff.
You don't do that, you got to do it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Swap spots, please.
Um,
Hi guys. So cicchetti, for those of you who haven't had them, are like little bits of tapas. It's never complicated. You never need a fork or anything. Everything just comes. You can just pop it in your mouth. You go to these bars in Venice and Verona, and they have these enormous big glass counters, and inside they have all of these gorgeous things, like bits of bread with really yummy fresh sardines on, or salt cod, or just yummy
Or
stuff.
cheese.
Or cheese or whatever. And you just
capsicum.
eat a few of those, and then you go to the next bar and you do it
Do
all
it
again.
they often, in terms of pairing wines, they often consist of fresh fish, cured seafood, cured meats, often things like on like little bits of bread. There's also like a lot of
but it generally
oil, butter.
It generally fits into the broadly what the Italians call aperitivo. So it's just hors d'oeuvres, we would in French would call it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I think we've been joined by Louise, who is in Elwood, and Gilly, who is in Chile.
Oh wow! Hi, Chile.
And yeah, Christine and Jen also feel that they get lemon on the palate, and Jen agrees with rose on the nose as well. Rose on the nose.
Rose on the nose.
Well, I'm personally moving to Toso,
Okay.
but I'm not rushing anybody. But the interesting thing about the Toso, it's got another part of Italian on it. It's got
Millesimato.
Millesimato.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that works.
Millesimato, sorry.
Millesimato.
Yeah. Now
You can only say it before you've drunk it.
Yeah, well, Millesimato. That
Easy for you to say.
That turns up on those. That's an expression that I suppose that they refer to as the expression of quality, but it also means generally means it's a single harvest, single vintage. So this is a Prosecco Extra Dry. It's DOC, which means it says it's from where it's from. Vintage is 2018. It's Millesimato, so it's a single harvest, single vintage wine.
Cool.
So it's not in any way blended or harvested from multiple areas.
No.
What you're saying. Cool.
So, but that's an expression, a bit like when we have a vintage champagne, where you'd say, that they thought it was so good they wouldn't blend it with anything else. But yes, Millesimato is something you often.
Just while we're doing that,
Prosecco.
can I also, because we've got a bottle of bubbly open here, and you never know, we might not drink it all. We have these brand new stoppers that just came in. See that? And unlike other champagne stoppers, they work. You put them on, you can turn the dial so you know which date you open it on, just in case you're not planning on drinking it in a day, heaven forbid. And you pump it like that. And it pumps air in and keeps it all bubbly. Available here.
That should also be said. There is a lot of people know of wine stoppers, particularly red wine stoppers that have a pump. What that does is pumps the air out and stops the red wine from oxidizing. What needs to be said for champagne stoppers is their job is to do the absolute opposite of that, and it's to maintain as much pressure for the wine to keep as much of its
Bubbly
or frizzante.
and sparkling, yes. Yeah, good point. What I think about, why I mentioned those red wine stoppers where you pump don't pump it too much because you'll end up pumping all the flavour out of the wine. Pumping away, you might be pumping away some oxygen, but if you pump more than a few pumps, you're pumping all the aroma away.
Well, particularly also with red wines, I find if you're over pumping them, changing the pressure that the wine's under is going to put the wine into shock. You know, you're making it do too much.
Should we sing Under Pressure at that one? No, never mind.
Thank you.
Before we completely move on, I would also like to say the Frassinelli Prosecco has subtle notes of honeysuckle, which is really interesting, which I find quite refreshing.
You haven't had the first one.
We've also got Rachel here. Sorry to Rachel across screen.
Hello.
I have the second one.
Jen feels quite nostalgic. They're the best. My family had those bubbly stoppers when I was a kid. So it's
Good to see they've stuck around.
Yeah, they're useful.
Oh, wow.
Very.
Took us ages to find them.
Well, I've been meaning to do research into the rumour of putting a silver teaspoon in the top of your sparkling wines.
Yes, but that means you need to not finish it in a day, which you've never been known not to do.
It's a good rumour, but it doesn't really work that well.
Look, I was told that there must be some kind of science that makes it work to a certain degree, but I'd be interested to look into it.
I've experimented with a teaspoon in the top of it because it seems like a good idea. It doesn't work.
Well, that
Just doesn't work.
my current understanding is that apparently it has to be real silver. So I didn't realise that we were getting really posh about the way we're doing that, especially if you don't actually have your own champagne stopper and you're putting spoons in bottles and
Silver
things.
spoons.
And
I'll
by
give
the
you a
time you're
tip.
putting
Get a champagne
Yeah,
stopper.
right.
Skip the spoon.
Well, by the time you're putting a silver teaspoon in a bottle of Prosecco, which, no offence, is cheaper than the silver teaspoon, I think it's a bit just get a stopper.
Okay, now what flavours are we getting, ladies
So-
and gentlemen, from the Toso?
The Toso Prosecco we're on to now.
I think I get a bit more elderflower on the nose from this.
I get sort of bready,
There's a bit of yeastiness to
sort
the
of
smell.
yeastiness to it.
Oh, see, I find this one more rosy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. I think that's what I call
Like-
yeasty.
Got a bit sort of nougat, maybe. That's
Maybe.
my thought. I'm getting technical.
I'm actually, now that you've said that, the power of suggestion is a dangerous thing when tasting wine. I'm getting a bit of nuttiness, almost like, dare I say it, pecan.
No, I completely get the nougat thing now. Now I want nougat.
I also personally think when it comes to Prosecco, you're not meant to be overanalyzed, just meant to drink it.
Well, you can't say that now because you're doing a tasting.
Yeah, well, so let's overanalyze it. Thank you.
I would also say,
This week we are tasting the things we said we were going to taste, though. That's very flash.
yeah, we have done a bit of quality control and made sure that the things that we've prior said we were going to taste are actually all we're tasting. I think there was a bit of confusion last week when we accidentally pulled the wrong wine.
No, there's no confusion. Ross pulled the wrong wine because he's a duffer.
All right, anyway, talk about the Toso.
I'm getting a lot less citrus in this than.
Yeah, I always find this one drier than the Frassinelli, even though it's probably exactly the same amount of sugar. It just always tastes dry.
Dry on the palate.
A lot crisper on the palate, particularly in the middle palate. And a bit longer too. It goes, got a grapey sort of kind of finish to it, I find.
Oh, see, it tastes like something. I can't remember what it is. What's that sweet that's made out of almonds?
Halva. Oh,
No.
marzipan.
Marzipan. I think it tastes marzipan-y. I don't know why, but I think it does.
That's really interesting. Though.
There's no such thing as a.
Yeah, no, there's no wrong answer.
There's no
If you
wrong
taste
answer.
marzipan, you taste
No, it
marzipan.
tastes marzipan.
Cool. There's never a wrong answer in tasting wine. The other thing about these probably are 3 best sellers in the shop. This one goes in lots of spritzes. It mixes very well because
that being said, have you noticed in the last couple of years the different flavour profiles of Proseccos in terms of the difference between everyday drinking and something that would go in like a spritz? Do you think there is a difference in that flavour profile?
Oh, well, the best thing with the spritz is you don't want you don't want the Prosecco to have too much flavour, so you don't want it to be overly complicated. But the joy of Prosecco is it never is overly complicated, so you're always starting in the right place. Like a lot of sparkling wine has got too much flavour, or too much of the wrong sorts of flavours to be shoving with Aperol or Campari or something like that. So, you don't want
a neutral addition.
Yeah, this is sort of light and frivolous, which is perfect for that sort of thing.
But yeah, let us know what you're tasting at home. What you're getting on the nose, on the palate.
I'm also curious to know if anyone's ever had a Aperol spritz that they thought was the Prosecco didn't match or wasn't a good fit. I'd be really interested to know if anyone has experienced that. So if that has happened to you, please let us know.
Let us know. And what would you choose to pair this with, do you think?
This one particularly?
This one. It doesn't have to be different.
We go back to chicken again. I think that would work well with sort of Parma ham or something. Well,
I think this would go really well with soft cheeses. I'm picturing something like an ashed brie, or even like a soft goat's cheese, something really smooth, because this is quite a little bit of a dry Prosecco. Then
that'll go pretty well with olives.
Olives is good, yes. Anchovies, I think, would be good.
Something oily?
Chips.
Yeah.
Something nice and rich and smooth and oily.
Yeah.
And Prosecco and prosciutto is a good combo. That sounds like a really lovely afternoon. That might be what I do with my Easter weekend.
Should I put one of those on?
Yeah, I reckon we should.
Beautiful. So that's the second of the Italian Proseccos.
Would you like me to do that?
Have fun.
Now we move on to something a little bit different. So we're moving on to the Brown Brothers Prosecco, which is made in King Valley.
The one we're drinking the label's slightly different just because it was a limited release label.
Yeah, if any confusion.
Not any different.
Now, from what I understand, when it comes to Prosecco, most of the Prosecco in Australia comes from the King Valley. And is that something to do with the climate being similar to Verona?
I reckon it must be. But also, is that we had the Pizzini Pinot Grigio last week, and Pizzini make a pretty decent Prosecco as well. It's all the same thing. It's the environment, also the Italian families up there. They've all been growing this and focusing on this for a long time. So there's I think it's in their DNA almost to get it right. The Brown Brothers do a pretty fair hand on this. So I'd say in terms of Australian Prosecco, I'd be thinking King Valley. I'd be thinking any of those things.
Well, we've always said when people want to try a new grape variety that you should try Brown Brothers, and if you don't like it, then you don't like the grape variety.
Well, it's always fair.
It doesn't mean it's the best one in its class, but it's always representative.
Well, I think that's fair to say about Brown Brothers wines in general. I don't think they've ever made a bad wine. They might have made a one that doesn't suit your palate, but I don't doubt they've ever made a bad one. We'll go for stopping here. So this is.
I've actually, as much. This is what we're drinking now. The Brown Brothers King Valley.
That's the current label, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll be really interested to know is, despite the sheer amount of Prosecco that I've had before, I've actually never had this one.
No.
Really?
So.
We also sell it in piccolos as well.
You sell a lot of it in piccolos.
Yeah.
So this is available in a smaller bottle as well, which is nice.
Christine is already right away. The Brown Brothers is sweeter. She's getting fairy floss on the nose. What do we think of that?
I think it's got more flavour in general than the Italian wine.
I actually think this has
Different
got
shape. It feels like it's a different
Mouthfeel?
mouthfeel.
Fuller in the mouth, fuller in the middle palate?
I'm struggling to smell this at
It doesn't
all.
smell of anything.
It does not have much scent to it at all, which is odd in comparison to the others.
Definitely.
Well, this is a completely different textural element to the wine. I think this is actually more on the front palate heavy. So as soon as it goes into your mouth, you hit all of the bubbles and the frizzante and all of the oily flavours on the front of the tongue.
Yeah. Very, almost sherbety on the palate, on the middle palate.
There is a bit of sherbetyness to it.
I'll get
I
lemon
think
lime
I think
before
that's
that.
what Christine's getting at when she talks about fairy floss. I think it's more that
The sherbet.
the end taste of fairy floss. You know, that sort of the
I also get a bit of lemon lime in the middle palate too.
I'm getting a bit of limey, zesty. It's heavier than lemon. It's got something else to it.
grapefruit. You know?
Yeah.
Grapefruit, interesting note.
Yeah, I get that.
I can imagine it with. Is there a grapefruit liqueur?
Yes, we do actually. In terms of what Vivian's talking about is potentially making some kind of spritz, and we do actually have a ruby grapefruit aperitif style liqueur called Pampel. Comes in this really beautiful, luxurious sort of gold and teal label, made from Italian ruby grapefruit.
Yeah.
And I've heard it suggested for spritzes before, so it's interesting to say that.
Italian, I think
Two
it's French.
parts Pampel and 3 parts Prosecco and 1 part soda.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a Pampel Ruby Rose and a Pampel Spritz.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Cool. So, here you go.
That might be the autumn version.
An autumn.
An
Or autumnal
spritz. An
spritz.
autumnal spritz.
Crikey, we are getting fancy. Why can't we just put the Prosecco in the glass and drink it?
Well, you can.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm trying to upsell it.
This is definitely heavier than the Italian wines.
I don't think this is my favourite type of Prosecco. I'll say that.
I think it tastes like Australian sparkling.
Vivian says she thinks it tastes closer to Australian sparkling, which I would agree with, to be honest.
We're chiming.
It's a completely different flavour to the Italian ones. I don't know if that's necessarily
A good thing or not?
It fills your mouth differently as well.
That's what I was
feel
saying.
like,
It's got a bigger, rounder mouth feel.
Yeah. I'm now thinking about that.
What sort of food did we think?
This is not chickpetti. This is
I think this would be really good
More
with
substantial?
roast chicken,
yeah,
roasted fish, something,
with a bit of butter in it maybe.
something nice, a little bit richer, a little bit toastier, a little bit,
Yeah,
This is more of an eating wine rather than like a sort of
grazing one.
a grazing before dinner snack sort of thing.
Christine says it tastes like work drinks.
Well picked, that woman.
Accurate.
Very true.
Yeah, very true. Now, we talked about small format in the piccolos.
Yes.
One thing that's come up from a number of people over the last tasting was, what have we got here?
Well, yeah, Christine just said there's no fizz though.
Interesting note from Christine saying that she's got less fizz, did you say?
Oh, yeah, she's not
So it's
feeling
more
as much
winey
of a
than
fizz.
fizzy. Okay.
It tastes more like wine than Prosecco.
Prosecco is wine, as
No,
far as I
no.
know.
Oh yes.
That's very good.
Did you learn that somewhere? Yeah, it tastes more like a drinking wine.
Like a still wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been interesting. I think it's it's a lot heavier. It's a bit bigger and it's got more mouthfeel to it.
Oh,
More heft. I'd be interested to know if that was something to do with soil and climate. Because I might be wrong. Am I wrong in saying? I might be completely wrong in saying. From what I understand, a warmer climate and a drier climate can tend to make a drier, more intense wine. Would I be wrong?
Yeah, but Verona, you might think it could cool a climate a bit like around Millwall, but last time we were there was like 39 degrees, so it was quite
remember you were there?
Okay.
Mind you, they're just about falling off themselves. They were saying how hot it was. But
Anyway, different styles.
different style.
What Christine means, there is no fizz in mine, the tiniest bubbles, which stops it feeling as light and springy as the others. But that makes sense because I guess the smaller bubbles will the mouth more.
Yeah.
Changes the texture of the wine.
Yeah, well,
Indeed.
moving right along, we're talking about next week, we're going to be tasting Pinot.
Noir.
Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir?
Not to be confused with what we did last week.
Which was just
Pinot
confusing.
Grigio. These are the ones we've been settling on. We've got a Yarra Valley, Bellarine, which is down near Geelong, and Stonies from the Mornington Peninsula.
Yeah. We'll be posting an event after the live, so you can sign up to the event after that.
And let us know if you need any.
Now, one thing that's come up during discussions with numerous people is getting samples in, say, a smaller format like this. Now, we're experimenting with these to find out what's possible. We know these work quite well with spirits, so we're probably thinking that the tasting after the Pinot, so the week after that will probably be gin. We're not sure how these will go with wine though, so we're going to test those out in the interim to find out and make that discussion. Obviously, it's not going to work with Prosecco or sparkling because it's by the time if we shoved it in a small bottle to ship out to everybody, it's going to be
Flat glare.
flat yuck. not much good for anything other than cooking with, really. But we're going to experiment with these to work out if we can sort of ship people smaller format wines for tasting.
So that might be a possibility on the 23rd, but we're not sure of that.
Also, let us know, number one, if you'd be interested in receiving and paying for a flight of sampling gins to go along with our tasting. Please let us know if you're interested. We'd love to get some feedback. And along with that, we will continue doing these tastings. Let us know what you want to do a tasting of. If you want to see us do something else different and exciting, something you've never tasted before, something that you really like, let us know because we are going to keep doing these and we always need suggestions and we'd love to get your feedback on what you want to see us do some tastings of.
And we'll carry on and we'll keep on tasting what we want to taste.
Oh, I mean, that's to be said.
True, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, gorgeous.
Cool.
Yeah, we ready to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful Easter weekend and drinks Prosecco.
And please let us know what you would like to see in tastings, whether you'd like to buy or would like us to deliver any of these Pinot Noirs. And we will pop a question on the Facebook page about what a sample tasting pack might look like. So 3 gins for, let's say,
Whatever it costs.
$40. And we'd mail them all out to you. The reason we're giving you 2 weeks notice is because it will probably take that long for the mail to actually get there. So if that's what it is you think you'd like to do, hop in, tell us that on Facebook, and then we will get you all to email in your addresses and we will mail them out next week for the tasting on the 23rd.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Gorgeous. Alrighty. Well,
Thank you, everybody.
have a wonderful
Cheers.
weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.